I'm a guy, so very bad at talking about
Feelings.
how I'm feeling.
So I'm a terrible people pleaser.
Oh, welcome to the club.
Some people having a label or a word makes them go down a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
But I find that for some people, having the vocabulary to be able to at least compartmentalize it in their heads makes it
Yeah.
helpful.
Top 5 boundaries. Am I getting my top 5 boundaries? If I'm getting my top 5 boundaries, it's okay. Deal with the rest. I don't think there's an ideal world where nobody crosses your boundary at any point. There was this constant feeling of being drained, this constant feeling of bitterness for people around me. It's just like, oh great, this person, I have to make this person happy now.
Hi, Ken. Welcome to my show. Call me hopeful.
Oh, it's called Call Me Hopeful.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
Thank you for willing to do this
Of
after
course.
a virtual 10-minute coffee
Yeah.
where I didn't actually get you coffee. So I owe you coffee.
Yes.
But I was watching your podcast, and one of the first few episodes is with Kanan Gill, and y'all talking about people pleasing.
Yes. Yes.
And I was very happy that you stood your ground,
Yes.
just despite how much fun he made of you. But
I need to talk to him about that.
yeah. But I think that's also sort of why I decided to talk to you about boundaries. And I wanted to talk about boundaries because pretty much most of the things people complain about, whether they are aware that they're talking about boundaries or not, they're actually talking about boundaries. And before we go into all the things that I wanted to cover, I wanted to get a sense from you as to, in your head, what are boundaries? Why boundaries? When did you, in an articulated sense, consciously start thinking about it?
I think so. I've been going for therapy for about 5 years now, and if I had to summarize my entire journey in therapy, it's only been about boundaries. So thanks to my very qualified therapist, she made me realize that this is kind of the recurring problem if I look at my life, and then I realized that I see it everywhere. So it's a very family dynamic boundary issue because it's kind of seeped into how I was raised. So I'm only going to speak for myself if I make sweeping generalizations about our culture. But yeah, I noticed, boundary. We'll just start with the simple of like saying no. We'll just start there before we go into it deep. But just saying no is very hard to do with parents, very hard to do with a partner you're trying to woo in the initial stages of your relationship. Very hard to say no to a client. I'm a freelancer. Very hard to say no to a client. So I thought this was just no problem. But then I realized that boundary is such a tricky thing because it's so personalized. What is okay for me is not okay for you, vice versa. Then to really go into it, then I realized this is also a personality related issue. It's like related to people pleasing. And again, just to get into people pleasing for people who are not entirely familiar with this, it's the tendency to focus so much on pleasing the people around you that you do things or you behave in a way which is harmful to yourself. So it sounds very innocent, like people please, such a cute, happy name to this condition, but it's quite terrible. Like people pleasing could be marrying a person because you want to make your parents happy. People pleasing could be having a kid because you want to make your parents happy. People pleasing could be not fighting for a promotion because your colleague who you really want them to like you, you don't want them to hate you, so you let them get promoted or you let them take credit. Some of my friends who are not people pleasers don't have a issue with at least saying no. Then I realized, oh, that's interesting. So is it like, so it's not just no, it's not just boundary. It goes to the personality also of wanting to be liked, which is not a nefarious thing. So it's very sweet to be liked. And then you realize that I think the aha moment for me to get over it was that what I was trying to avoid by saying yes happens anyway. So I should just say no. So that's like, so then I just thought, I'll just do baby steps and just work on saying no. But now it's kind of like, it's not that simple. It's every aspect of my life is a boundary thing. And yeah, so that's been my journey so far. And as you ask me more questions, as we get more into it, we can really nitpick the struggles of navigating through boundaries.
So had you heard the word before you went for therapy, or is your therapist the one was?
No, I didn't even know that what was frustrating me in life was a boundary issue. I didn't even know what people pleasing was. I just thought it was like, I thought my parents told me that you should be nice to everybody and try to help everybody. And I'm not blaming my parents. I thought it's a nice thing to tell a child that don't upset people. So I didn't know the word boundary before therapy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was it helpful to know the word?
Yeah, I think that's also like the irony, na, when you go for therapy. People like, what is the point? You guys are just talking, and talking is like everything. And when you break down stuff into concepts you can understand, you kind of snap out of the situation. Before, when you're just like, I need to say no more, doesn't help. Versus like, I need to really be strong with my boundaries. So if you're having a conversation, you're in a situation, and you're like, I'm feeling a little uncomfortable right now. Why could that? Oh, is this a boundary thing? And then, it kind of snaps me out of it, out of my reactive behavior and into being more aware. What about you? Like, what is your thing with boundaries?
So for this episode, I was like thinking about it even more. So I'm a terrible people pleaser.
Oh, welcome to the club.
Yeah. So like my friend told me it's gonna be on your gravestone.
Oh,
Like it's gonna say Ira Khan, people pleaser. And actually, before we get into that, I just wanted to take a step back because I think that see, boundaries and all of these things, we get very worked up about it because obviously it's impacting our emotional and physical material world a lot. And because now we're all trying to figure it out, and also people are trying to, make mental health a thing on the internet. And so there's a lot of people trying to help, but then there's a lot of words also just coming out. And I think we've sort of, so like maybe you and I have thought about it a little bit because of therapy or whatever, but for a lot of people who are just hearing the word and then from social media getting their understanding about it, I don't think they have taken a step back to realize that what the internet is talking about is personal boundaries.
okay.
Whereas we also have social, cultural boundaries. And the thing that we are struggling with is the conflict between them.
Yeah.
Because society has set a boundary that you can't murder people.
Yeah.
It's a boundary.
Yeah.
Maybe your household or ex household has set a boundary that you can't abuse in front of the elders. Now, this is a collective boundary, unsaid or said, that we have set. And the struggle with how do I say no to my elders and a whole bunch of those things comes from your personal boundary conflicting with the social, societal
Yeah.
boundary that you've set. So, and then there are completely personal boundaries where I don't want to share my underwear with you,
Yeah.
which has nothing to do with.
Yeah. I keep telling Kanan to stop sharing. Yeah, he doesn't listen.
And I think that's an important thing to consider when you're trying to figure out how to navigate that thing.
Yeah.
Because I'm in control of me and what I want to do. But if I have chosen to, you don't choose your parents, but this is the family I have, this is the community I live in, this is the country I live in, this is the world I live in, you have to compromise to a certain level just to exist in a society, right? Because we
Yeah.
are social beings and we
Yeah.
need each other. So the whole, what you talked about, people wanting to be loved is normal,
Yeah.
natural, perfectly healthy. So I was wondering whether you ever, as in what your experience has been when it's a collective boundary that you may or may not have verbally agreed to. um, versus boundaries that are just about you personally and society doesn't have a.
Yeah, I mean, I think a very accurate description of this is it's very easy for me to have boundaries when it's just me and my wife at home, because it's just another adult who also have chosen. It's not a family member. When you get into the joint family situation, it's a very you can't have boundaries in India. It's very hard. Like if you're having, like for example, get together for Christmas or some big event, and there is this one uncle who's drinking a bit much, making a scene, making everybody uncomfortable, or there's this aunt who's saying very inappropriate boundary crossing statements about marriage and having kids and all of that. So in that moment, I think it's more of a compromise and a negotiation with yourself, where you're like, will I meet these people again? It's like it's once a year. So is it worth the educative conversation to be like, uncle, this is makes me very uncomfortable when you do this, and then he'll be like, huh, and then you're like, you know what, I'm not gonna see this guy again. So I think the best way to do that is, I think, just knowing the fact that you're not okay with it, and they are doing something you're not okay with, and you have tried to have that conversation, or you didn't have the conversation, or you think it's not going to change. I think just accepting it is better than kind of being annoyed with something you don't understand. I think, like, I'm annoyed because my uncle, for example, who stays in the house, makes inappropriate comments every day, and it makes me uncomfortable. But they have not crossed the line, but they cross a line, and it's just unfortunately my reality. But I think just that awareness makes it just 5% better. Obviously, there's no solution to everything. But yeah, I think living in India has si- all sorts of situations. It's constant cultural boundaries that you cannot help and control. And I think a slightly positive way of looking at it is um, top five boundaries. Am I getting my top five boundaries? If I'm getting my top five boundaries, it's okay. Deal with the rest. I don't think there's an ideal world where nobody crosses your boundary at any point. So, it's we all have our social personalities. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go into this event, or I'm gonna go into the living room, be your living room persona, because at least I think I'm getting my top five boundaries. That's how I deal with it. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's an interesting conundrum of we're a very non-individualistic society.
Yeah.
You don't get kicked out of your house at 18 and say go live on your own,
Which I like, actually. It's
which
nice.
which has its
Yeah.
own pros,
Yeah.
right? The fact that you can depend on your family for
Yeah.
as long as you want.
It's so nice. Yeah.
And so I think it's finding that middle ground of how much I can communicate and there will be some amount of understanding and change, and how much I have to be like, you're like this
Yeah.
and you are like other things as well, which I love.
Yeah.
And this part, not going to get the best of it. I actually, that sort of leads me into why we set boundaries.
Yeah. So, like, so for me, I was just, there was this constant, like, feeling of being drained, this constant feeling of bitterness for people around me. It's just like, oh, great, this person, I have to make this person happy now. If I'm tired and I want to rest, and if my partner wants to watch a movie or go out, I will not do that. I'll just make it about them. And then that obviously builds resentment. And then suddenly 3 months into it, I'll just be like, we've been doing whatever you want, what about me? And then they're like, you could have just told me. And then you realize that this is completely on you. So yeah, the for me it was I went for therapy, and my therapist was like, okay, let's do baby steps. Let's start pissing off people that you don't have value for. So strangers. So then I started with by pissing off, I mean not doing what they want. So literally I used to do stuff like I used to make my Uber or my auto rickshaw guy just stop for no reason, because I was like, how can I interrupt? We are supposed to go to this location. I can't ask them to stop in the middle. So I should just do that. I'll be like, "Okay, just stop here." And they say like, why are you making me stop? Yeah, let's stop. Actually, I just want to get a candy or something. And they're like, what? And I'm like, okay, get used to this irritation they have with you. Or tell the Uber person to put the windows down, switch on the music, switch off the music. Even though I was absolutely fine with it. That's how bad it was for me. Like I didn't want to be rude or annoy anybody around me. So then I got used to strangers. Like I used to go to the cashier, I used to be like, can I get a bill? Can I get a bag? Even though I was fine. Because I was so scared to be like,
Give them a
I want to be
500
best
note,
customer. Yeah. Give them
even though
a,
you need.
yeah. Like not give them exact change, because I want to be best customer. So I worked my way up from the people. Also, a lot of people think they have boundaries. They're like, at work, I can just say fuck off to my boss. Go home and try to say fuck off to your friend or your partner. You can't do it. It's very hard to do boundaries with people you really value. It's very easy to do it with strangers. So I literally worked my way up. Then I went to work, where in work I started saying no. I started saying, give me a week to think about it.
That's the best
Yeah.
response ever.
Yeah.
Like, I will get back to you.
Yeah, and I never did that. I was just like, oh, I'm making them wait. They might think I don't want this project, or I'm being pricey. Again, I'm not coming. I know the immediate reaction from a listener is, you have the privilege of saying, give me a week, and they won't go to somebody else. So do the version of like, give me 1 hour. I'm not saying give me one, just delaying it,
A little
not
bit.
letting them set the deadline. That's what I mean to say. If they say, I want to know by EOD, I'm like, can you give me till tomorrow morning? That's not an unreasonable request. So I started, so that was my homework. If they set a deadline, you reset it to a reasonable thing. And so then it finally came into my personal life, where with friends and with family, where if they ask me for something, or I just don't react like, yes, whatever you want. They should be like, hey, can we go for a trip on this weekend? I'll be like, actually I have a show and I don't want to cancel it. So it'll be nice if we can replan the whole thing, which is horrific for me to say before. And they're like, oh, okay. Oh, you should have just told us. And I was like, oh my God, it's that easy. Also, like, provided you have reasonable family around you.
So, you mentioned when we, in our 10-minute coffee, about cutting people off.
Yeah.
And I think that, so exactly what you said, right? I mean, you talked about two separate things. One is setting, the hardest part about setting boundaries with people who you need and who are a big part of your life. So like, for me, once I learned how to start setting boundaries in my personal life, work became slightly easier to set boundaries in. But it's okay, again, two things. One is the time when you just had to say it and they were like, oh, yeah, of course, which is more of an internal battle.
Correct.
And then there's you don't really have much of a choice. It's reached a point or a threshold where
they are pushing back.
Yeah, they're pushing back, or you can't. And different people deal with it differently. But then I know people who handle it in a way that also I don't understand. Like, I really love this person, but they annoy the shit out of me and I'm in disagreement with them. So I'm never going to talk to them. But if they were in the hospital, I'd be the first person there.
Yeah.
So like,
correct.
There are these strange ways of keeping people in your life, setting your boundary, and then, times when you're just like, no.
The cutting off thing is a dicey one, because it sounds, again, to somebody listening, very harsh. But again, I don't know if I should get into this, but like, when you start working on yourself, you realize that a lot of parts of you are really bad, and then you start fixing it, like objectively bad for you. And you start fixing it. Like, you become more punctual, you become more professional, you become more health conscious, you become better with communicating. And then you realize that a lot of the friends you made on that path were that version of you making friends. So you made friends with somebody who's bad with their health, who's not punctual, who's not good at communicating. And then now you're going through this changing journey, and now you look at them and you realize, oh my God, I love them because of the time we've spent, but they are quite a horrific combination of qualities. So in that case, you have two choices. One is you stand by your boundaries and you make them respect and understand that these new changes you've made is not some hobby. It's like it's going to be who you are. Like, unfortunately, a lot of friends like mock if you stop drinking, for example, or you stop having junk food, or you want to go to bed early. It's kind of fascinating how it really they find it offensive that you want to go to bed early. Like, you're dismissing them. Mm. And if they get over it, give them some time, because it's also bizarre for them. And if they get over it, congratulations, you made a good friend despite your bad habits earlier. But if they actively come in the way and you can see that they don't get it and they don't want what's best for you, you can slowly distance yourself or constantly put that boundary. And if they keep negating it, be like, I am going to bed, so I can't come. And so I don't think you have to be completely cut them off or not stop loving them. As you said, if they go and get into an accident, go visit them. But this has happened where I have had friends and they have had some change of heart and it's for the worse. And I still love them. So if they have a wedding, I'll go for their wedding. If they need help, I'll help them. But I stop calling them up and hanging with them because there's nothing to relate to anymore. But yeah, the cutting off is when somebody challenges you constantly is like a beautiful test for yourself to be like, this is somebody I love. I have told them what I want, which is so hard for me. And they know that also. And they're still pushing back. So it's a very sad moment to be like, oh my God, my friend doesn't care. And because I keep telling myself, I would never do that to them. If they told me, hey, Kenny, I'm going through a bad time. Can you give me space or spend time with me more? And that doesn't work for me. And I say, I don't want to give you space. I would never say that. I'm like, I'm not insane. They're telling me something. Why would I dismiss what they're saying? I can see it in their eyes. So that's when I put them to a standard that I only follow. So I also don't make myself sound perfect. But if I'm communicating something to them twice, thrice, okay, 10 times, and they still don't get it, what can you do? And life is really better when you're around people who at least listen to what you're saying. It's much better. You don't need so many friends. 2, 3 is enough. You don't need so many.
I think in terms of how to then realistically implement this in your life, or how to decide whether you need to cut someone off or not, I feel like, I don't know, I think at least based on the posts that my Instagram feed shows me, it seems to be very snap decisions, or it seems to be very like this or that. Whereas, like you said, and like I also realized, hey, come out for drinks. No, I don't feel like. Oh, you're such a boring person. Versus, hey, come out for drinks. Sorry, I'm really trying to work on my sleep right now and it messes with my mental health. I'd love to hang out, just not post 8 p.m. The reaction you will get from these two responses is very different.
Yeah.
Now, that it makes all the difference in your final ability to set the boundary. And so that's actually what I wanted to talk about more, in terms of how have you actually then go out to set those boundaries, because it's in that very specific thing that you said that made it work for you in that moment, which will let people know the variables that they have to consider when asking of this, right? So one is, for example, my friend had come from the US and I hadn't seen him in very long, and he wanted to meet. Um, Thankfully, I was already on my I will self preserve because my depression sucks bandwagon. So I had more confidence to set my boundary. But maybe if I was not feeling so tired that day, I would have let go of that instance because he has come after so many years or whatever it is, right? But knowing when to um, stand up to which boundary in what situation, and then how to
Hmm.
tell that person, right? Because I don't feel like makes you think I don't want to hang out with you.
Yeah.
I do not want to hang out with you. I just really need to start sleeping so I can wake up properly. Um, so I want, let's say, like your Uber stories, and those are, really helpful because you can set boundaries in different ways.
Yeah.
Um, your aunt comes and says inappropriate boundary crossing things once a year. You can prep for that one day a year,
True.
right? And make sure you hang out with your extremely loud cousin all the time so that your aunt just doesn't have the opportunity to ask you about marriage.
Yeah.
Whatever. You figure out how to do things. So I wanted to know from you the ways in which you what you actually said, what you actually did.
Yeah. Sure. I mean, what you're also bringing up is, so I'm a guy, so I'm very bad at talking about
Feelings.
how I'm feeling. Also, because I think when you raised a boy, you're not encouraged as when you're very young to describe why you're sad or why you hurt, and it's always pissed me off. I talk about this in my show also. How I always envy my wife. She's very good at describing what she's feeling and what she needs, and also this you can only get to this point when both of you have reached the maturity to be like, I can't read your mind. So how I fix this with my friends and even Trace, who I'm married to, is all my friends and Trace, we both have this understanding that no matter how tired, no matter how well we know each other, no matter what time of day, do not assume we can read each other's minds. It is not romantic to be like he or she knows what I'm feeling without me telling. It's not romantic. It's dumb. Okay, nobody knows what you're feeling. No, if they've known you for 20 years, also you got irritated of something. Don't assume they know why you got irritated. So that's the baseline. I'm going to constantly over explain because nobody knows what you're thinking. Even with my guy friends, is we find it hard to make time to meet each other, and so a lot of cancellations happen. And how guys express frustration is, you always fucking cancel, bro, and I'm not gonna fucking call you again. So I know he's joking, but if there are days where I'm like, hey, come, let's go for the movie, and this friend purposely like doesn't update me because they're taking revenge for when I don't come, and finally they come late, and I'm annoyed. In the past, I wouldn't even say I'm annoyed, and now I do, and I'm like, why were you late? The movie is thing, and then my friend's like, well, now you know how I feel when you come late or cancel, and yeah. So in this situation, there are two options. One is we continue the back and forth, or I just pause and I'm like, okay, this person's clearly annoyed. I'm also annoyed. Right now, there's a movie. What is more important? Me being all mature and solving this issue with communication, and we delay the movie further? Because not everything has to be this giant therapy session. So I'm like, okay, he's annoyed. I'm annoyed. Let's hold this for a while. Let's finish the movie. And then we watch the movie, we come back home, we're calm. And then as we're having dinner, I'm just like, you know, you have been canceling a lot as well. You know that, right? And then they're like, what? I'm like, you've been canceling a lot as well. It's not just me. And they're like, oh, is this about me coming late today? I said, yeah. And it's weird how you think only I cancel. Like, then I start very calmly. It's not a fight. It's not a fight zone anymore. It's very like, last two things you didn't come. And he's like, oh, yeah, I didn't. And then he just laughs. I'm like, yeah, fuck, I cancel. I'm like, yeah. So then I think this communication has established that Don't make snarky comments next time. It's not needed. We both are at fault. Um, so that's a way I've realized that when you let the moment pass, also it helps, because many times I have tried to over therapy everything. Where if there's a fight happening, I'm like, no, we have to resolve it now. Let's talk about it now, and this just makes the situation worse. So sometimes just pushing it to when both of you are not heated helps. Another thing that my wife has taught me is I used to collect the dissatisfaction, and then when it really was bad, I was like, now it's time to blow up. And I'm like, you've been doing this for the past 3 months. And then she's like, what? Why didn't you tell me the first time it happened? Again, as a guy, I think you're taught that if you react to something minor, you're whiny. So I was at least taught that only when shit really hits a fan, you talk about it. But that's such a bad way to navigate it. So, like, my wife has this amazing gift of like immediately expressing annoyance, which is fascinating to me. And it goes away as quickly. So she's annoyed about something, and she's like, "Why is this here?" I'm like, "Oh, I left it there. Okay, cool." And she's over it. Well, I would look at it and be like, "Oh, it's right. I told her to put it back," and then I would let it simmer. But I won't show. My face doesn't show that, and I will wait for her to do it again. And I'm like, "And she's doing it. Okay." And then I'll kind of kidly bring it up 2 months later, saying like, "Hey, you're keeping the laptop there only, no? Because otherwise water won't fall on it. So it's safe." And then the third month she does it, and then we have a fight, and I'm like, "Anyway, you're not responsible." And she's like, "What is this about, bro?" And I'm like, "This laptop. See, you always leave it here." She's like, "What is the laptop got to do?" Then I was like, "Okay, I have a problem. I need to address these things before it becomes a bigger thing." And again, this only works is because my wife is okay with me addressing it and not blowing up at me back. So now when she leaves the laptop, I'm like, "Hey, why is the laptop here?" She's like, "Okay, I'll put it back." But she's not like, "Why are you telling me what?" Like, then it's you're in a bad relationship. So she's made it comfortable for me to be annoyed. So I also have to give that privilege back. So when she gets annoyed, I don't assume the worst. I'm just like, this is a small annoyance. Hear her out because she hears me out. I've done all this gyan in my other relationship. It never worked because I used to express and then they used to shut it down immediately. Or they used to get annoyed with me or they used to get upset. So then I was like, oh, yeah, there's no point if both of you are not. So yeah, so that's how I kind of resolve my specific conflicts every day, but it only works with people who are on the same page. It doesn't work with my mom. Doesn't My dad's pretty okay. Mom's very stubborn, so I have just resolved to a at the base level relationship with her, which is fine. I'm so happy she's here with us and she's sweet and nice, and but if I have to have like a very deep conversation, I can't have that with my mom, unfortunately. Maybe she feels the same way about me, but I have that with my dad. So
So that's actually another thing that I find kind of annoying is that, like you said, in relationships, you're supposed to be able to read the other person's mind,
yeah,
is one thing about relationships. But in boundaries, it's about um, as if not having boundaries is an indicator to how deep the love is,
hmm. Oh yeah,
which to me is a little bit.
it's dumb. Yeah,
That.
yeah,
Because, like, you love your mom a buttload, and just because you have X boundaries with her does not mean you love her any less.
yeah,
So there is people specific boundaries, then there is your own personality specific boundaries, where it does not matter how madly in love I fall with you, this will just never be okay with me. It has
yeah.
nothing to do with you
True.
at all.
Yeah,
um and I feel like when we're trying to set our boundaries, when we're trying to decide whether you're respecting my boundary or you're not respecting my boundary and how I'm feeling about that, we have all these other connotations and values attached to our relationship. So, for someone who's trying to figure out how to set their boundaries, which also is different with each human being at each time in your life,
yeah, yeah.
like it's constantly
Never ends.
changing and never ending. And to think that you and I have to have the same boundary as, someone else. And I feel like when we generalize the whole concept of boundaries, we make it harder for people to actually be able to implement them in their lives in a way that's helpful to them.
Yeah.
So, yes, sounds a little chaotic and complicated. Um, but life is chaotic and complicated, and you can pretend like it's not and try the generalized 1 minute reel version of it, and then keep cribbing for the next 10 years because nothing's gonna change. Or like you said, figure out with this person I can work on my boundaries to this extent. With this person I can only do it this much. And then exactly what you said, right? If my top 5 boundaries are being met, then I have the bandwidth to
exist.
And adjust with the other ones. People think being empathetic is being not assertive or being not what you want, whereas I see it completely differently, in the sense that if I've realized, suppose I asked my mom, I said no to my mom for something, and now she's hurt because I've asked her to maintain my boundary. If I realize that I've hurt her, then the way I respond to that later or immediately afterwards will change her response to whether she then maintains my boundary.
True,
right?
Yeah.
If I'm like, you fought with me about this and now I'm going to be angry with you and you're going to be angry with me, it hurts when someone says no to you.
Yeah.
And to realize that when you say no to someone, it's going to hurt a little. To me, that's just a useful strategy, not a people-pleasing strategy.
Yeah.
It's something that's going to work in your benefit. So I was wondering if you ever, because the people-pleasing makes you feel guilty, right? Immediately of setting the boundary. Has it ever led into a sweet conversation?
Yeah. Again, like you brought up the very important point of feeling kind of shitty when you set boundaries. And the biggest learning I had is that my gut, which is something empathetic people really just hold on a pedestal, is wrong. Basically, your gut is built on years and years of bad habits of people pleasing. So when your gut says, hey, this person seems hurt or this person needs help, go help them, your gut's just doing people pleasing. So when you set a boundary, that same gut is like, oh my God, we get it. You want to put strong boundaries, but at the cost of hurting a person?
People think your gut feeling is like this magical
spiritual thing. It's not.
But it's just conditioning.
Yeah, it's conditioning.
It's what you're used to.
So it was a very tough period when I was doing these boundary things, because I didn't know who I was. Because I can't trust my gut anymore. I know that my inherent reaction is wrong of people pleasing. So I'm like, who am I? Which is also like a very enlightening feeling that you are whoever you choose to be going in a direction. So I don't just like, Kenny's supposed to be sweet, supposed to be all accepting. I don't have to be. I'm who I decide to be. And if I'm not even that person now, it's okay. I'm who I'm hoping to be in 5 years. So this thing you said of like, I constantly go through it. Like whenever I have set a boundary, I always feel bad. And I'm just like, am I being too harsh? And that's happened, initially when you go for therapy or you start reading books about mental health, you kind of overcorrect. So I started becoming very rude. I used to be like, if they say something, I said, no, I don't want to do it. I don't think this is something I want to do. I'm like, why am I over-explaining? They used to feel bad. And I should not soothe them. Like that example you gave, which is so nice, that if I set a boundary, they got upset. And they used to, I was like, this is not my problem. I'm not a people pleaser. And so I overcorrected. And that period also was tough for my friends and my family. They couldn't understand what I was going through. But now, as you said, people listening, they're like, man, this sounds like a lot to constantly be analyzing every situation. Is this a boundary crossing? What is not? If me setting my boundary is good and then me consoling, isn't that people pleasing? I think the way I resolve it is I pull back and I'm like, what is end goal? That is what matters.
Yeah.
So every situation is different. So if you go into end goal mode, it resolves itself. that situation with my friend, end goal was watching a movie and having a good time. If I therapied that situation, I would just ruin everybody's mood and the movie would be not enjoyed. So this situation with the mom, what is the end goal? I want to set a boundary, but I don't want to hurt my mom. And my poor mom doesn't understand boundaries. And it's new for her. So I think the end goal switch is how I navigate through many situations where I think with my dad, I mean, even he's like 66, so he's also set in his ways. And so there are times when he does certain things that hurt me. And in the past, I would have been like, but he's 66. What's the point of this? But I look at the end goal. I mean, what's the end goal? And sometimes the end goal is as simple as I just want him to know how I feel. I don't want him to change anything. So then I'm like, okay, if that's the end goal, and I don't think that'll hurt him either. He'll just be like, Kenny's talking again. So then I would be like, hey, Dad, I felt bad that you didn't celebrate this achievement I did. I know you're used to stuff, but this was a big deal for me. So I was kind of upset you didn't ask me about it. But it's okay. I'm fine now. And my dad's like, oh, I didn't know that. Congrats. I'm not going to be like, but you don't mean it now. I'm like, the end goal is done. Whatever he says after doesn't matter.
I think another way to figure out what boundaries you want to learn to set is to sort of get to know yourself as a person. Because also, if I don't want to sleep early and I don't want that to be my boundary, just because the internet says it's a boundary I should have doesn't necessarily mean it's a boundary I should have.
Yeah.
Right? So we shouldn't pick our boundaries from what other people's boundaries are. And I think it's really interesting that you brought up getting to know yourself and your identity in the whole process of deciding what your boundaries are. And that also helps you pick the top 5, right? So
Yeah.
what are your top 5
Yeah.
boundaries? How am I supposed to decide? I feel like that also happens, the whole flip side,
Yeah.
when you just discover the wokeness that comes out of you to go to the other
That's true.
extreme
It's very annoying.
is something that I feel like to keep reminding myself.
Yeah, it's a journey.
It's a journey.
It's an overcorrection and it happens to everybody. So yeah, it's don't have to be so hard on yourself.
Now we're going to sit and summarize how we are going to save the world from their boundary issues.
Okay.
I think I don't know what order you want to go in, but I guess there's the discover yourself
Yeah.
and get to know yourself so you can decide what boundaries you want to set
Yeah.
and which ones are not important for you to set.
I think baby steps first, like don't dive into family and friends immediately. Try to do boundary exercises with this. Again, I just copied from my therapist. So I don't know if this is wise to do to give therapy homework to people who are not going for therapy. But try baby steps, like do it with people who don't have much value. The consequence is far less. So that's first step. Second step is evaluate end goal.
Mm-hmm.
Third is even see if this is something worth doing, instead of bringing out your work card and being like, we need to discuss this. And I think fourth is that your boundaries will constantly change, right? And I think to some things you can leave for your gut. It's allowed. Rest, maybe you should question everything. So I think that would be a...
Yeah, I think it's essentially a balance
Yeah.
of a whole bunch of things. Don't feel stressed about having to figure it out right now, because yes, we talked about 50 million things, which proves that you will take a while till you get that.
It's been 4 years, 5 years I've been working on this boundary thing. I'm still on it. And just when I think I've overcome it, it comes back in a different package where I meet my therapist far often now, but I'll come and I'll tell, this happened and strange. And she's like, this is still a boundary thing, right? And I'm like, damn it. I thought I was over this. So you're never over it. There's no winning or losing. It's just...
But it gets easier.
Gets easier. That's more complex boundary issues, which is kind of cool.
Level 2.
Level 2, yeah. I was going to say level 27, but okay, level 2. Yeah.
I'm on level 2. You're on level 27.
No. Don't do like that. Makes me look bad.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Call Me Hopeful. I was wondering
Okay.
if you would be interested, willing, feel free to say no, to make a pledge
Okay.
about something that you are going to do in your life
Oh,
related to mental health boundaries, etc. It can be the smallest little thing on the planet.
so actually, one goal of mine was to send all my friends to therapy, so my life improves. And one of them has, and I'm so proud of him. So I think, I'm. What's something you can check on me with? I actually was on this path. Like the point of my podcast was also like to just tell people how everybody's struggling, everybody's messed up, nobody has it figured out. Um, so yeah, you know what? I'm gonna figure out a way to make therapy a little more accessible some way. If it's promoting a pre-existing organization or putting it out there how you can get access to it, because I keep every time talk about I go for therapy and I know it's expensive and it's not accessible, so maybe I should also like start looking into some sort of solution for it instead of just being like how great it has been for me. So yeah, so I pledge that I'll figure out a way to make therapy a little more accessible in some way. And if I fail, you can't hate me. You're a terrible person if you hate me for it. So yeah, but I'll work on that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ira, for giving me homework.
Homework. Hello, this is Ira Khan, and that was Call Me Hopeful with The Swaddle. To listen to more such episodes, subscribe to The Swaddle on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, or wherever else you get your podcasts from.